Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Pfaff-Bain with the Taos County Chamber of Commerce. I'm Executive Director with the Chamber. It's nice to see everybody's faces. Thanks for taking the time to be here. This is a really important meeting about downtown infrastructure. I want to first thank, of course, Mr. Reyes and Kit Carson for always taking the lead on all the big initiatives, small initiatives and big ones as well. And thanks to Charles and for Taos Mainstreet. So a little bit of housekeeping. This meeting will be recorded, so please keep your microphone muted. Please put your questions in the chat. And if you do not want people to see your beautiful face, then please go ahead and turn off your camera. And again, it's all about communication and collaboration and partnerships. So thanks again to our partners. And thanks to Darian Fernandez for being here from the town. It takes a village, and thank you for the town of Taos for showing up to the table. So at this time, I would like to introduce Mr. Reyes with Kit Carson Electric, and he'll be facilitating the meeting this evening. And then Charles will be looking for the questions in the chat.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Charles, and thank everyone who's on. But really what I want to do is make this interactive discussion. And it's really related around placing our infrastructure that's kind of in the general vicinity of the McDonald's and link it to the road improvement project that's going up through town, and I believe will end up I guess around the Kachina Lodge area. We have been working on other crossings. So over at Sentinel Bank, we used to have a line that went overhead to the Taos County. We buried that line for safety for the traffic signals. The new alignment at Smiths and Los Pandos, we rerouted that line on the Cows property. So that line isn't across the main highway. And now as we get into what I'd call the main historic district, we're looking at burying our existing overhead lines that go up that corridor and maybe some of the laterals to a certain extent, and also upgrading maybe age infrastructure within the plaza itself, if we can get that done. We want to do it in conjunction with this project. We know it's going to be very difficult for merchants within the plaza because of basically they're tearing up the road. So we feel that if we can do this all at the same time and not kind of have the state come in and then Kit Carson comes in after, if we can get all the underground utilities at the same time, then I think we first get a better infrastructure, really less disturbance to the business community, just kind of one time during this period of time, and then upgrading both from Kit Carson's perspective, the electric and the broadband. And we want this to start right at the bottom of Cantu Hill or McDonald's and go up all the way across to, I would say, Kachina. And I don't know, Lindsay or Charles, if you know, it stops there at the intersection to go to Taos Pueblo, or if it's going to tie into the Placitas where they ended that project or started that project. The proposal that Kit Carson's making is any of the infrastructure that we own, that we would put that basically underground and coordinate that with both the state of New Mexico and the town of Taos, and that would be covered by Kit Carson. There may be some meter bases that the cost may have to be borne by the property owner of some of the buildings, and I would say mostly on the east side of the plaza. And we're assessing that now. I have been in communication with the State Highway Department. In fact, I met with them today to outline our interest in both putting new infrastructure and also placing conduit for future infrastructure, so we're not cutting up that, so that road isn't being cut up. I have attempted to reach out to the gas company and CenturyLink, and so far I have not been able to get a hold of them. And I don't know, and maybe Darian, you know, if the town has any plans to upgrade its infrastructure going up that road. I do know from my discussions with the State Highway Department, they're currently about a year behind schedule. I understand weather permitting, they want to start in April, back to finish from the county courthouse up to, I believe, to the intersection. And then the next phase will start from Los Pandos and then go up, I want to believe, right past around the park area, is my understanding from a meeting today. But again, that could change. And at some point, we may want to invite the highway department in. We do want to look at the laterals or the overhead lines that cross. I believe it's by Eskies and goes behind that bed and breakfast. I'm not sure what the road south of Carson Road is.
This George's Lane.
This George's, look at that area, and then maybe go up some distance on Kit Carson Road, around maybe to where Howell Cleaners used to be. We have a three-phase line that goes to Taos, so that would be hard to bury that, knowing that we still have an overhead line that goes to Taos. And then as we go up to Mainstreet, kind of reconfigure some of that overhead, and then the crossing at the park on Civic Plaza Drive. And so before we move forward, and again, we've visited with the highway department, we just want to get some comments and see if there's interest from the merchants, get some comments of other things they may want us to try to facilitate when it comes to infrastructure during that time, and then go back to both the town and the county, town and the state, with a plan that we have hopefully everybody online. I mean, the whole idea is to build consensus, get aging infrastructure buried, that's overhead. That also hardens the system and the network, and also gives us higher reliability in our kind of our central district. We have planned from a Volkswagen settlement to put some EV charging in the parking lot right across Cantu Plaza. So there's that little parking lot there, but I'm also open to suggestions from the merchants of any other areas any other locations in that area that EV charging may be useful for people who have EVs to be able to park and charge, and hopefully walk around the plaza, Mainstreet, that whole area, but have a location to charge. Right now, there's a couple of chargers at the TCA, but I think if we strategically put some along that route where we maybe have 3 or 4, I think we also start to look at what our future vehicles are going to be looking like. I do think there's going to be a surge when you get to $4 gas. EVs look pretty attractive. And so we're looking at that infrastructure. We have spoken to the state about funding part of that. And so we're going to be applying for EV charging. Again, I just want to reiterate, except for the potential service entrance or the meter base, we're not asking anyone to, in essence, pay anything out for the infrastructure we want to bury, the EVs we want to install. What we're really looking for is comments, either negative or positive, and at the end of this discussion or continued discussion, build some consensus so I could get with the state highway department, the town, to say, here's our plan we'd like to do as we try to beautify and bring some reliability into the plaza area. So I just want to give a high level. I want this meeting to really be a meeting of the merchants and those on this call to give us some input and next steps. I mean, certainly I look at the list, there's 15, but this surely doesn't represent all the merchants. And so I'm trying to build as much consensus, but our time is limited. I need to be able to get with their engineers at the state to see where we can put our conduits, location of potential underground transformers, that kind of infrastructure location. So it's in their plan before they start the next phase. And so I think we do have a couple months, but we don't have a whole lot of time. And so with that, Lindsay, Charles, we can open up for questions, comments. Again, I don't want to dominate. I just want to help facilitate a discussion that hopefully results in some positive community collaboration.
I'll jump in with a few quick comments. Thank you again, Luis, for being here and for helping talk with on a community level about infrastructure. It's an important discussion. We had certainly hoped for more people to attend, but feedback that we get consistently from some of our merchant meetings that we hold on a monthly basis with our merchants, they are generally very supportive of upgrades to infrastructure across the board. They kind of see the lay of the land, and they know that there's a lot of aging infrastructure in the district. The burying of overhead power lines, we certainly know that there's several places within the historic district where there's a lot of overhead lines running in all different directions. And, that kind of beautification is something that I think almost all of the merchants could really get behind. They do understand that takes work, and that means that they're going to have to be trenches that are dug, and they do understand the things that go with that, but they're pretty overwhelmingly supportive of most of those type of infrastructure upgrades. And we have plenty of merchants that have asked about broadband access too. I mean, there's a lot of them have, kind of a hodgepodge of connectivity. We have merchants who just piggyback off of other neighbors' Wi-Fi. And I think if there was an opportunity for them to get quality, affordable broadband, there would be a lot of interest from them. I think they would jump at those opportunities. So I certainly don't intend to speak for all the merchants, but I'm just relaying some of the feedback we get on a regular basis. And I think you'll find the consensus for beautification and infrastructure upgrades to be pretty positive and in favor of those things happening.
And thank you for those comments, Charles. I think to the group, that's the other thing we want to do is we really want to kind of wire the plaza and make it really connected, including we used to have cameras in the plaza, both for security and basically so we could actually promote the plaza, showing people what was going on. A lot of that was a wireless link, but I think with fiber optic in the area, we could easily wire different locations where we can create hotspots to begin with. And also then through some of the corridors, start offering broadband services to the plaza merchants. So that too would also be in the scope of this, because we do see a lot of value in being able to promote the plaza kind of on people's websites and having live remote cameras, those type of tools that kind of give our merchants at least another tool to get people to the plaza, and also maybe have some security, as unfortunately the past few months we've just had a lot of a crime. The co-op itself has been, some of our substations have been vandalized as people are stealing copper. And so if they're stealing from us, they're stealing from other folks. So Charles, you're right on. Kit Carson, during the COVID, we put out about 22 free hotspots. We work with the town and putting in a couple in the park, and we certainly would work with the town to put a couple of free hotspot locations, both in the plaza along Bench Street and Civic Plaza Drive, so that our guests who come into town at least have some connectivity while they're shopping and walking around the plaza. So that would also be in our plan.
So thank you, Mr. Reyes, for always taking the lead on, big hot topics, and infrastructure is definitely one of them. So we will be having the EV charging station at the plaza. Is that what I'm hearing? There's going to be one. Is that correct? Two?
Yeah, Lindsay, so we have one, but
Yeah.
right now I have been working with the state to get additional funds for, two or three potentially. And I'm pretty confident we'll get the money just
Okay.
because there's so much money at the federal level. The help I need is, where do the merchants think they're most productive for them? I don't want to perceive I know their business or the business flow. We need input to say, okay, this is where we think the best location for a charger is, and then we'll do the analysis from an infrastructure if we can accommodate that.
Okay, great. Thanks for that
Hey,
description.
Let's go to Jim, and then I'll read a question from the comments after Jim.
Luis, one of the things that Mainstreet is most interested in, I think, is the laterals. Although George's Plaza, Civic Plaza Drive, and Kit Carson Park and TCA enter into what we call the alley network. I think you saw from the Strong at Heart plan, this sort of 10-year plus program, which is to try and turn the downtown historic district into more of a walking friendly commercial district. And to look at the situation right now where we technically, if you look at it, the town is over parked. We have more parking spaces than are ever needed, according to a couple of studies. They're just not all quite as convenient as right up close to the buildings. Taos Mainstreet has a project to present to the town by May 1st, the sort of next step, moving the alley network concept forward. And one of the things that has struck Charles and Claire and myself as we've been looking at it, and the former design committee on this, was the alley network really is the topping to the road.
Okay.
Underneath the road are sewer, water, possibly electric, possibly broadband services.
Right.
If we can coordinate with you, at least in the beginning, to see what your immediate plans might be, where some of these overhead lines are planned to be cleared up in the future, is one more way in which we can help pay for the reconstruction of that road, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
So we're working with French, we're working with Mitch, and we're going to try and get some other plans laid as well. Try and find out from as many people as possible, what do you need to do under those surfaces? So we can try and bring that forward and see the scope of the problem.
Right, Jim, and I think on the main road, we're exactly doing that. I think what's key though is maybe better understanding what the town's going to do and kind of what their plan is. All the decorative lighting that we put in concert with Town of Taos projects. So whenever they were going to do new sidewalks, and this was, let's say, 20 years ago, we worked with the town, we got our conduit in, we got our bases in, but we had some planning horizon. They said, we're going to do this in 2023. So we got our material, we got our design, we met with the merchants on Kit Carson, and we put all that decorative lighting.
Right.
I agree. If we could do that in conjunction with Mainstreet and the town to say, okay, what are you going to do on Civic Plaza Drive? What are you going to do on Martyrs Lane? Those are the two areas on the east side that have overhead systems. Kit Carson Road. And it could be simple. If they're doing new sidewalks, we could put the power in the sidewalks or the conduit in the sidewalks. So I think that's my other ask too, is how do we better coordinate this on an ongoing basis?
One of the things I would suggest, not to interrupt you, but that we're going to be talking a lot and are talking now to the merchants.
Right.
So being able to have a clearer understanding of all of your questions, or being sure to bring Kit Carson into the conversation. I guess I'm saying we're already there with the merchants, and we're going to be doing it over the next 8 weeks. So that should be a prime coordination for us.
Right, because I think, if lighting is, if we really want a walking, kind of a walking area, then we need lighting. That's just, there's some areas that are just dark, or count on us with the lights on our power poles versus decorative lighting. And so, but I do think in this first phase, there's opportunities to address that. And maybe some of the alley or laterals, Jim, but not entire, like Kit Carson, I think they're going to do a turning lane right going up towards Taos Canyon. So in redoing that intersection, we can probably push the overhead underground, maybe a couple 100 feet. And so that's one project. We have a point that we can cut. And then if there's another project, then we'll continue. So I agree with you, but I think overall, when I talk to Mainstreet and the chamber, is we want to do this in conjunction, but how do we continue the ongoing planning so that when opportunities come, we can put in at least conduit so that the infrastructure is being upgraded at the same time that the roads and water and sewer are also being upgraded.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think we're on the same page. I think we just probably should have had this discussion several years ago. And so we're here today. So, but that's where we're at. I did see a question in the chat, and I be remiss, Michael Santisteban from my office is in attendance also. So we'll get a map of the area and we'll start outlining, Jim, what we propose in this phase, and then start marking up some of the comments that you just made on the laterals.
We'll make sure he's got the planned alley network diagram as well, so you can see where we're coming at it from some other purposes.
Okay.
Thanks.
We had another question in the comments from Claire that said, will you or do you have a map of the areas that you're looking to bury lines? It might be helpful when we're communicating with the merchants to be able to show them exactly where we're talking about.
So Claire, we have maps and we'll start marking them up. We really wanted to get some comments tonight. So if there was a desire to put additional EV charging, then we could put those on the maps. Kind of Jim's comments, now we can actually put those on the maps as maybe future projects, but certainly within the next few days, we'll get a map out. And I'll go through you, Charles, and you'll distribute the maps to the merchants, and then they can contact us on any questions or anything they have questions on.
Excellent. Looks like Shannon R has her hand raised. Shannon, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name's Shannon Romeling. I work for Amigos Bravos. We're a statewide nonprofit water conservation organization with our office here in Taos. And just thank you very much for putting this together. Our mission is to protect and restore water quality,
Right.
but our overarching theme of that is to support and integrate climate change into all of our work. So we really appreciate your work around electric vehicles and upgrading infrastructure. And then I liked what you were saying about, trying to minimize impact to the community by doing as much as we can at the same time. And so on that realm, if there's any way that we can work together to integrate any stormwater infrastructure when lines are being buried, if sidewalks are being dug up, if things are happening to the sides of roads, and there's ways that we could collaborate to also improve stormwater infrastructure, we'd really love to talk about that. So please reach out to me, and I know you know our executive director, Joe,
Yes.
and I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, and I think and I know the town, I don't know if French ever got on, but I think it may be helpful, Charles and Lindsay, if we can get maybe, if they have any plans on this project for any stormwater or water, so we have a better understanding of what other infrastructure wants to be kind of either upgraded or refurbished. Because I do think, you've seen how long the project has taken. So going up this road, it's a narrow road. I think it's going to have a big impact on the Plaza merchants. So I think the more we can do now in this planning and also in this next few months to get everything we can, we mitigate any future disturbances or in the Plaza. So I'll also reach out to French to see if there's any town type projects or any accommodations for town facilities in this next phase.
Thank you. And I would just add to that that we do have design plans complete for green infrastructure improvements around the county courthouse and around the town library. I know those weren't specific areas talked about today, but just for future collaboration, you know, those are things where the engineering is done, and we would be happy to work on raising funds to incorporate green infrastructure work if there were ever lines and work being done in those areas. And that's also the kind of thing that we could help support the town in if they needed, if it would help to do some design, even if it wasn't time to do on the ground work. We'd just love to talk about any opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's go to Andrew.
Thanks, Charles. I appreciate you guys putting this together, and you know, I recognize firsthand the work that Mainstreet does, so thank you. Through the process of the infrastructure plan and just recognizing what our downtown looks like and how unlit it is. As I pass through town, you know, most evenings and the sun setting, what's the likelihood of being able to, at least in the name of safety, put either lighted crosswalks or at least LED flashing signs, because nobody stops for pedestrians, especially on the corridor along Cantu Hill, right in front of Taos Inn, any of those areas. So within the confines of that, is there infrastructure funding available to address some of those concerns, especially as we haven't hit those corridors yet?
Right. So thank you for the question, Andrew. I would so for infrastructure, let's say the power, broadband, everything to make sure they work, there's funding, and that's something we'll bring to the table. We can leave that. I think as simply as the town asking the state, you know, you're talking about some signage, and you're right, people don't recognize people crossing the road on those crosswalks, and you do need to sign them somehow. I think, you know, when we buried both the Smiths and the Sentinel, they weren't part of the plan. And took us about a week, but the state really did work with us. We called the town facilitated a meeting. So I think I don't see why in this $11 million project, we can get some signage, whether it's the crosswalks being lit, you know, where you don't put another kind of a post that you know, kind of blocks the view shed. But there's ways to do it. But I think you know, I had a meeting with the state highway today on a week's notice, and they basically agreed that if we can get the merchants behind this, they would be willing to put that. So I don't think it's a whole lot of money. The flashing lights at the co-op where the propane is, I think that was like $10,000, to give you an idea of what one of those stop or flashing lights or pedestrians cost. So,
Right.
so that's easy to do.
And you know, I've seen in other communities where they actually embed within the asphalt, right, those flashing lights, so there's actually no obstruction to the view shed, and then, you know, they're activated by the push button. Secondly, as you guys have gone through the process, and I know you said you worked with the town on those decorative lights, is there a likelihood of doing the same type concept? I know the corridor that they've already worked on is probably passed, but at least within that downtown area, to do some type of smart lighting that lights the walkway for pedestrians as they're walking north and south. That's our busiest pedestrian corridor. Mm-hmm. And yet it's the probably least lit and the most vulnerable in my opinion of a pedestrian being hit. And it's not a matter of if, I think it's just a matter of when.
So Andrew, if there's conduit, all that can be done, because we have electric on both sides of the road. We have fiber where we can put some sensors that, as you kind of motion sensors as you walk, they come up. You know, we did that so that it was consistent within the downtown district. So when we sat down with the town, we wanted to make sure that it was consistent with the plaza, and that and that they were decorative, and also that they maintained the dark skies standards. So everything you're talking about is really doable. From Kit Carson's perspective, We just need either the town or the state to say you can do it, and then we'll design it. And so that's kind of the comments we're looking for. Again, we have a really good relationship with the state highway for various different projects that we've done other places. And this is a time to ask. In my discussion, they're still getting a lot of ARPA funds going through the state, through DOT. So there, in my opinion, there is plenty of money to do these kind of minor upgrades that bring a lot of value and safety.
Thanks, Luis.
I'll go ahead and ask a question, Luis. In the spirit of building the consensus that Kit Carson may need to move forward with the DOT, would it be helpful for someone from Kit Carson Electric to maybe work in conjunction with us at Mainstreet to develop a letter of support? I think we certainly could get a good amount of merchants to sign on to a letter of support if you'd be willing to maybe help us draft the specific language in it that you need.
Charles, I'd be happy to do that. I think the process though should be that to the town of Taos, and then the town of Taos jointly with the merchants to the state. I think it also shows that we're working with the town to get this done, but we're also asking the merchants for their input and their advice. We'd be happy to help you draft that and also give the details of what we're going and what we think the benefits are.
Excellent. Is there any, I do see another question here from Nina. She says, is there a master plan of these infrastructure plans available to the public?
No, I think that goes, Charles, and thanks for the question, Nina. That goes to what we have a kind of a plan internal, but we don't have a master plan, as this basically has just come up within the last few months of how do we beautify as we go up through the plaza. There was a lot of public hearings when they did the project. And we did attend, I believe Michael and actually Andrew attended on behalf of the co-op. We made some comments, but not all the comments were accepted by the highway. So this is kind of our second phase. So, but any maps that we have, we're willing to share with the public as they become more final.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I have a comment to make but I'm not exactly sure how to proceed with that.
Go right ahead.
Okay, I don't know if Luis is aware of it, but back in the 80s, my name is Albert DeVoe.
Yeah.
I'm the son of Beatrice DesGeorges and the DesGeorges family. And back in the 80s, when Mom and I were remodeling, I personally installed some 6-inch conduit from Quesnel up the alley by Amigos Bravos and to a transformer behind Amigos Bravos, across our parking lot to a transformer behind the Quesnel, behind the Ufer house there, the Victorian house. And then we went across the parking lot again to behind the Spotted Bear. There's a transformer there, and it's all in 6-inch conduit. And I had hoped that we could retire the line that was overhead across from on the Contus to DesGeorges. There's a line right there overhead, but the neighbors didn't want to pay. We carried it all the way to there. We paid for everything up to there, and we had meter boxes installed behind the buildings so that they could run underground to the bed and breakfast and over to Baca. And then all those lines that were crossing, or the line that's crossing, could be retired. And that was the hope, that all that overhead stuff would be tied on there. But it's in place. It's right there and we could actually run from the transformer behind you for up to discharges and get underground over there as well.
We can relook that. I think that's what we're asking is, I don't recall that 6 inch, but if it's already there, is that a town road or a private road?
It's actually Indian road.
Indian.
It's
Okay.
town road then. I
So,
think the town has a lease on all that underground, but I know that you know, there's cable going up to discharges through our property. It was always just laid, there was a telephone cable, but the
Okay.
power cable that was laid, I put in myself personally. I went to the REA and got the 6 inch pipe and brought it in from Quesnel. They hooked me up and we put it in to the transformers that I just mentioned, and it's underground in our property, on our property.
Okay, well, we'll get with you and we'll see what we lack, because that's the whole idea, is if we take that 3-phase pole that's across the road down, then we'll have to make that all underground, actually towards that B&B anyway. And so that's actually our intent, is try to beautify that corridor, but also, you know, kind of make it more storm resistant and more reliable. You know, I think it was asked, one of the big drivers is, you know, we had this extreme storm where we saw 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Right.
And, you know, if these are going to become more frequent and the climate change issue gets worse, then, you know, infrastructure is going to be taxed quite a bit. And so this would be part of our hardening, is putting things underground. So if we have those type of events, at least we don't have trees on lines or poles breaking, and people still have some service while these storms hit our community.
Okay, just wanted to make you aware of that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And we can talk.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
will. We will.
Thank you.
Got a question here from Sonia. She's asking, how can we take advantage of the infrastructure bill to expand, enhance broadband infrastructure and modernize the electric grid and address public safety issues that have been pointed out this evening?
So thanks for the question, Sonia. So Kit Carson has basically hired a grant writer to look at the different elements of the infrastructure bill, everything from broadband connectivity to installing more storage on the system, to what elements do we need to harden. And I'll give you some examples. Some of the hardest hit areas in our territory were Upper Red River, but a lot of that was in the Carson. So we've already met with the Forest Service about what hardening means to them. It may not necessarily be underground, it may be steel poles and different types of wire. But we do have someone on board that's breaking down every different program to see what Kit Carson can apply for. Once that analysis is complete, then we'll look at who we need to partner with to make an application. So we have, again, we have locations for batteries. I think that's going to become more prevalent in our power mix, especially if we have these type of winds in the future. What you're going to see utilities, including Kit Carson, do is really just shut down the power till the winds pass, so that if you do have a pole break or a wire fall, it's not unsafe anymore. It won't cause a forest fire or damage any private property. But if we replace that and have more battery storage, at least we'll have some power supply to critical infrastructure and circuits while this storm passes. So Sonia, we do have a plan getting put together. And I would say within the next 3 months, we're going to make application to several different programs that cover kind of this extreme weather event, build in some resiliency and also some redundancy.
Thanks, Luis, and for covering all of that. I just think you're here today as a funder, just thinking for looking for opportunities where we could leverage our dollars a little bit further to access some of this federal and state funding. Once in a lifetime, we continue to talk about it. But having those projects, identifying those programs that really align with some of the things that have been pointed out, both from merchants and just the historical piece or context with Kit Carson, I think help too. So I'm here listening in, just hoping that, we can hear from the business community on some of their priorities. But as you're starting to think through those programs, how we support and do some of that outreach as well,
Right.
just to push this forward. So let me know, keep me in the loop.
Will do. I appreciate that. And again, I think part of it is, where do we locate some of this infrastructure? I mean, if we, storage is going to become, I think, extremely important. It's resilient, it's reliable. It's not as big as people think. A megawatt of storage, and the plaza, to put things in context, is probably a quarter of that from a power supply. You can fit in a 8 by 40 van, 8 foot by 40 van. So if you take a fourth of that, that's like a 8 by 10 building, almost as big, the size of the bathrooms actually. So you could actually put that in the plaza somewhere that if you lost power, you would have enough power, 2-4 hours, however we design it, where a storm passes, that if nothing else, you could close the business down in a easy fashion. Your security could stay up. So I think the input from the merchants is extremely important to us, because it's more than just beautification. It's how do we bring reliability and resilience. I think kind of what we're seeing in Europe as a tech infrastructure, how do we become self-reliant when it comes to attacks on our grid? So anyway, these are all things that are possible today. And I appreciate you reaching out, and maybe, we need to talk about how it can help Kit Carson, or the members through Kit Carson, to accomplish some of these goals. So thank you.
Question here from the Taos County Chamber of Commerce. Will an EV charging station be on Mainstreet or John Dunn Shop's parking lot by the public bathrooms?
So that's how I open, Charles. If there's locations that we want to locate them, we just need to know, so then we can notify who the property owner is, right? If it's within the town of Taos, the town has worked very well with us on EV charging, really on a lot of our infrastructure. And I saw Fritz on, so I want to thank Fritz for his support of the co-op and its infrastructure moves. If it's in the John Dunn parking lot, I believe that's a private parking lot. We just need to get with the private owner and figure out what kind of arrangement we need to make. I do think I saw in the chat, maybe Guadalupe parking lot. With one charger that has 2 cables, we can actually get, one charger, and you can get 2 spaces. If people really want us, and they're not really big, if they want to see them, the town worked with Renewable Taos and the co-op. There's one at the library, so people can see what they actually look like. But yeah, again, if we get consensus of where they should be put, Charles, then we'll do the design and get the proper permissions and then move forward.
Jim.
Just seeing Sonia's comment about, yes, we need a comprehensive plan or project to then make a formal ask, all inclusive of all these things. That's really the question, I think, behind this whole meeting. How can that happen? Because of all of the players that are going to be involved. We have the town, we have the county, we have utility companies, police, public works. Before we even get to the merchants and to Mainstreet and to some of these other things where we want to talk about it, that's a big project and a great question that I think Charles and I have been wrestling with for a while. We're not quite sure how to do it. This tonight is actually one of the starts to trying to get that with somebody that we know. So,
And I'm sorry for those of you that probably didn't see in the chat. So Jim, you had direct messaged me about just including the alley networks in that
Yes.
comment. And so that was my response. And I think,
oh, okay, sorry.
and no, it's good for everybody to hear it. I think, hearing all of the things and the opportunities that Kit Carson Electric has to really modernize some of these things, do those repairs, and bring things, even as a beautification piece, there's other entities that are working on some of these things that can be included in the ask. And so it should be comprehensive. It should be inclusive of all of these things in the Mainstreet corridor. And I don't know who takes, who's the champion of that? Is that Mainstreet? Can we ask Charles to say? I don't know who that is, but just to say, here's Carson's, here's some of the things that we can do. Here's what we're hearing from the business community. Here's some of the objectives within Mainstreet. Here's some of the objectives that have been that have come out of some of the plans within the town. And how do we align this to come forward with the project, a very comprehensive plan, then we can go after some of this funding. And everybody feels included in that. So that was kind of the premise of all of that.
Well said.
Hey, Jim, does it help that the scope is narrowed to infrastructure? I mean, I know there's a lot of needs within the downtown historic district and a lot of concerns that the merchants have. And we talk about a lot of things, while I was on the Mainstreet board, such as beautification. But does this help narrow that scope? And maybe, Luis, I guess narrowing the scope within the confines of what the co-op can bring to the table and what the town can bring to the table. At the same time, whether it's water and sewer infrastructure, I mean, obviously that falls on the back of the town, and broadband and electric infrastructure, which would fall on the back of the co-op. Has that been I guess a focus of study in just the infrastructure realm as we now are going through this construction process? Because the last thing I, as a constituent within the town of Taos, want to see is a brand new street dug up, right, for a failing water line, or right. An afterthought. So I don't know if that helps, Jim, just being that it's now a narrowed scope.
Like, I'll answer part of it and then give it to Luis. We realize bringing the alley network project forward for the town of Taos to consider that we have to have all of these players at the table. We originally tried to make the general public aware of this plan and get their support and make them aware. Now, all of the individual players, starting with the town of Taos and the infrastructure providers, need to be aware of what this plan is so that we can figure out that way to work together.
Yeah, and Andrew, I agree with Jim. I think the one change or the one difference is we have a project in front of us now. And
Yep.
we know that the highway department's going to finish that road.
Yep.
And how do we optimize that? I think from Kit Carson's perspective, we want to deliver the tools that enable the merchants to do what they want. So by me giving them reliable electricity, broadband connectivity, or the access to it, then I think that supports Mainstreet in other projects they may have around around that area. So that's really how I view it, is we're the infrastructure on this piece and deliver some reliable tools to the town and the merchants, and then support their efforts through Mainstreet on the next phase. While doing planning, I think that's paramount. I mean, we try to visit with all the municipalities. We serve 6 to give us a 5-year plan. What roads do you want to upgrade? What sidewalks are you going to replace? So that we're in a position when any municipality says we're ready to go, we can at minimum put conduit so that we're ready. Once they finish, then we can pull in our infrastructure to complete the project.
Okay.
I would just say, I hate to use the term too big to fail, but if we're too broad in that planning, right? And I think that's kind of what, Luis, you're alluding to somewhat, in the sense of thinking that level of specificity and priority is when we're too broad, too inclusive, it's hard to figure out where do we start. But having a plan that just really outlines that and really sets the the targets on priority and that level of specificity that needs to say in the first year or within this bill or within the confines of like what funding streams are available, this is what we can go after. So this plan could be that big at some point, but
Right.
just realistically thinking, what are the things that we can go after, knowing the level of resources that are coming down in the first 1 to 5 years, and then what's 5 to 10 years out, and then how do we work from there?
Well, one of the things that Charles pointed out to me earlier in our conversations was that around about May 1st or so, the Taos Mainstreet needs to identify to the town council where they think the first 1, 2, or 3 alleyway networks might be, which are the logical ones to start with. So we know things like the courthouse construction going on. We know there's some restroom issues in that area. We know there's some water line issues in that area that need to be repaired. And I think a small section of sewer line. We're asking, in a sense, I would be asking Kit Carson, for example, if the conditions on Martyrs Lane were so bad that you have to do something in the next 2 years, we would want to move our recommendation to the town of Taos, even though it's not a design, forward to try and take advantage of some of those things.
Right.
So we're having that same conversation with French, with Mitch, with Tim Connor, with anybody in the town right now that we can get to try and find out what they think they know. So.
I think French is on, it's French.
Yeah, he hasn't returned any calls, so he's somewhere. So. I think there's some talk of him retiring soon as well. So we need to do that sooner rather than later.
But isn't French on here now?
No, not that I can tell.
I
No,
didn't see him on.
no.
Does anybody have any final questions or comments at this point? Okay, Lindsay, do you want to close us out or should I go ahead? Well, so again, thank you, Luis, for being here. Thank you for having this discussion with us on a community level. I would say that those of us on this call and certainly us at Mainstreet really recognize the importance of these vital infrastructure upgrades in our downtown district. So we at Mainstreet are also hoping for this to be a continuing conversation that we can have on a community level. So I will certainly connect with you, Luis, and Michael offline about that letter of support and maybe how we can try and work with the town to develop that and get some more input directly from the merchants to get you whatever you need for consensus for the DOT. And we will certainly keep everybody posted on when we may have another discussion like this in the near future. So thank you everybody tonight for attending. We have recorded this and let's see, I think that we, Taos Mainstreet and the Chamber of Commerce will post recordings of this as soon as they're available. So anybody who missed it will have a chance to at least watch and hopefully attend next time. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luis. Thank
Good
you
to see
everybody for
everybody.
coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. Good to see you, Jim.